How's this for an idea? The top team in the ACC shouldn't play in the ACC Championship game. Huh?
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We'll talk on this episode about the Miami versus Wisconsin drama over Xavier Lucas, the defensive back who has transferred from Wisconsin to Miami despite never actually getting put into the transfer portal. I had a chance to speak to his lawyer today about that. We'll talk about the way too early odds for ACC football champion for next year. Speaking of ACC champions, Kenton, we may find a new way of crowning an ACC champion, which would include the top regular season team in the ACC maybe not playing in the ACC championship game. Sometimes when Jim Phillips speaks, I wonder if he should maybe run it by somebody before he starts talking about his great ideas.
Each and every day, Donno. Each and every damn day, we find ways to be less and less competitive as a society. What is this? Oh, you're in first place, so you're going to opt out. I'm going to tell you a little story that traces back to 2nd Avenue in Detroit, Michigan, okay? My junior year at Cass Tech, we're slated to be one of the top teams in the state, and we were that. We were one of the top teams. We had a pretty good regular season record, all that good stuff. Our only loss in the regular season came out of conference. So we were already locked into the state playoffs. We did not have to play another game if we did not want to. And our coach said, is there an opportunity? Can we line it up with somebody? Can we schedule somebody? And even in that game, a lot of folks said, oh, your team's a little banged up. You got injuries here and there. You should rest your starters. I mean, you don't have to play this game. You go ahead and rest them. RJV could have beat U of D Jesuit that year. They still put the starters out, and we trounced those boys by 24 points. So I say all this to say, what the hell happened to compete at all costs? What the hell happened to the game I love, Donno? The game I love, where you go out there and every time you're given an opportunity, if you're the top dog, because I understand bowl opt-outs. That's a little different. Yeah. That's not, if you're in a bowl, 9 times out of 10, you're not the top dog. I get it. If you are the top dog, if you're the big dog, I'm chomping at the bit. I'm begging and pleading and scratching at the door. Let me get in. Give me a shot. Let me show everybody how much better than everybody else around me I am. And what I don't understand Jim Phillips. Every time he makes a decision, I'm like, hey, that's a good decision. He comes in with something immediately behind it to say, oh, I'm about to make the worst decision you've ever seen, buddy. I'm about to make Antonio Brown look like a solid decision maker, I tell you.
And yeah, so as you guys have probably surmised, the premise would be that since, SMU, who was the top ACC regular season team, they ended up losing the ACC championship game to Clemson, but they still made it in. They had to sweat it out. They did still make it in. So the idea basically from Jim Phillips is, well, hey, maybe the top regular season team should just not play in the championship game so we can, theoretically guarantee them a spot into the playoff. And then 2 versus 3 play for the ACC title game. And the winner of that game gets in. And I agree with everything Kenton had to say about competition, by the way. So, and by the way, credit to Andrea Adelson at ESPN.com for putting this article out there. So here's a couple quotes from ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips. He says, the conference championship games are important as long as we make them important, right? He said, do you play 2 versus 3? You go through the regular season, and whoever wins the regular season, just park them to the side. And then you play the second place versus the third place team in your championship game. So you have a regular season champion And then you have a conference tournament or postseason champion. He says that's one of the options, depending on how you treat the conference champions or that championship game. You may want to do it different. He says, I have alluded to that in some of our every other week AD calls, and these are some of the things moving forward. We want to have a recap of the regular season, postseason. What do we think moving forward? Now, okay, you know where I'm at on this, Kenton. To me, you either play a conference championship game or you don't. Like if you want to get rid of conference championship games altogether and just say, hey, maybe this could do more harm than good, fine. But this idea of having the top team sit out the championship game and have 2 versus 3, it doesn't make any sense to me. So let's either play the championship game or let's not pretend it's important and scrap it. You do one of those 2 things.
Absolutely. Play it or scrap it. Period. I'm one of those people. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it royally. If I'm gonna screw up, I'm gonna screw up royally. I ain't gonna dip a toe halfway in, half out. We won a conference championship game, but we don't want to risk number 1 getting out. And Donno, can we discuss that for just a second here? Let's do this logically. Jimothy, let's put on our thinking caps, okay? I'm gonna speak directly to you for a second. If we are parking number 1, so that number 1 is guaranteed to make the playoffs. Quick question, Donno. How many teams do we have make the playoffs this year?
12.
How many in the ACC?
You mean the ACC? Oh, yeah.
How many in the ACC?
Sorry.
2.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Donno, just out of curiosity, let's say that the number 1 this year would have beaten number 2. Would number 2 have sniffed the playoffs?
No.
That's
a great point.
Is what you're like. Yeah. If 2 loses to 3.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Like 3 is still probably not going to get in because once you redefine the parameters of the conference championship, now the playoffs have rights to say, well, wait a minute. They're doing something fishy over there. They're cooking the books to get 2.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go with the highest rank of those 2, and then whoever falls out of the wash after that, we may consider you. But somebody's going to get screwed out of that situation, either the regular season champion or the tournament champion. And Lord forbid, again, 3 loses to 2. Now you went from 2 teams being in the inaugural to 1. Right. If that, because again, you've now opened Pandora's box for the committee to say, do they have a true champion? Do we need to rethink our parameters? Somehow our rethought out parameters have Vanderbilt in. Who could have thunk it? So, this is a half-baked scheme that is clearly not thought through at any relevant measure. This is something that did not require a modicum of neurons to say, this is stupid. This doesn't make sense. Jim, come on back. Get it. I bet he in that dark room with Aaron Rodgers. That's what he was doing. He was in that dark room with Aaron Rodgers before.
He's with a shaman right now.
Aaron Rodgers is a Cal grad, which means technically he's an ACC alum now. I get it. Right. I understand, Jim, but you leave that man alone. He is not okay. He is going to have to find a new job when the Jets get rid of him. You don't want to be in the unemployment line with him, okay? But saying stuff like this, Jim, you're going to be right there with him, updating your LinkedIn.
Yeah, man. No doubt. I mean, listen, I come up with terrible ideas all the time. I don't necessarily run all of those by you on the show. I try to filter the terrible ideas. Maybe Jim Phillips should start filtering out the terrible ideas. Listen, there's nothing wrong with brainstorming, right? Maybe run it by somebody first. We have a lot more to get to on this episode of Locked On ACC. I want to get to this Xavier Lucas saga next. So this is the player, and boy, we seem to set new precedents every single year when it comes to transfer portal and NIL related matters. This combines probably every hot button issue college football currently has to face. So, this is a player who he's originally from South Florida. Lucas had a good first season at defensive back for the Wisconsin Badgers. Decided, he wanted to transfer and play closer to home. Requested to hit the transfer portal over a month ago. Wisconsin just didn't put him in the transfer portal, despite by NCAA rules, you have 48 hours to put a player into the portal after their request. But Wisconsin says the reason why they never put him in the portal was they feel he breached a binding 2-year NIL contract. And they're also accusing Miami of tampering. I had the privilege earlier today of speaking with Xavier Lucas's lawyer, Darren Heitner, who's very, very well-known name for college football fans because he's been involved in a lot of different NIL and transfer portal related cases. And, a number of things we talked about, Kenton, including whatever he knows about what Wisconsin claims to have about Miami tampering. So we'll get to that and so much more. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Oh, we're only getting started with Prize Picks. I've been playing Prize Picks for the past 4 years, and it only gets better. Prize Picks is the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. It's playoff time. There's no better way to get in on that action than with Prize Picks. Here's how it works. You simply select more or less on at least 2 players' stat projections. And if your picks hit, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. That's right. 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. Guys, it takes me less than 60 seconds to make my selections. And I love how you can go cross sport with these things. You can, on a 6-player selection, you can have 2 college football players tonight in the championship game, 2 NFL players, 2 NHL players on the same selection. Guys, I love it. And in the app, you get your winnings fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today, Prize Picks, and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Run your game. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out our other shows. Kenton and Grayson do an awesome job hosting Locked On Wolfpack. I host Locked On Canes. Earlier today, Kenton, I interviewed Darren Heitner, who's the lawyer for Xavier Lucas, former Wisconsin Badgers cornerback, now with Miami. And this was a crazy story. So what ended up happening was, Kenton, his lawyer found a loophole on how to transfer despite never actually hitting the transfer portal. So he was able to unenroll academically from Wisconsin before their semester deadlines and enroll at Miami before their semester deadlines and basically circumvent the transfer portal. The NCAA actually admitted that that there was nothing illegal about what they did from that standpoint. Now, Wisconsin has contended that Xavier Lucas, according to them, is breaching a binding NIL contract. And here's where it gets crazy, Kenton. So they are trying to hold up this NIL agreement that he signed with Wisconsin Athletics that is based on the House versus NCAA settlement, a revenue sharing contract. Now, Lucas's lawyer contends that contract, he refers to it not as a binding contract, but as a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, that it cannot be binding because it's based on hypothetical legislation that hasn't happened yet. And also no money has been exchanged yet from that deal. So there are no damages to be sought. So this basically they're contending that these contracts that are already going around certain Big Ten schools cannot be upheld. And this is only getting crazier by the day.
I want to make something clear here, Donno, and I'm going to challenge you on something, but I'm not challenging you on this because I believe that you're not a man of integrity, but because I believe you are. That's why I'm going to challenge you on this. The framing of this, and that his lawyer found a loophole, I strongly disagree. Wisconsin tried to find a loophole, tried to exploit a loophole simply by not entering him. They said, well, if we sit on our hands and don't enter him, he can't leave. The university attempted to find a loophole. If the rule is you have within 48 hours to put a young man in the portal when he requests, you do what you got to do. If the argument is he signed with an NIL collective, he signed with the revenue, he signed this agreement, so that's what it is. All of the players who, remember when we had that mass exodus out of NC State's defensive backfield? Guess how many of those guys didn't sign for the 2024-2025 or the 2025-2026 season? Guess how many of those guys didn't sign?
0?
None. All of them had signed up already. All of them had signed up. Everybody said, I'm coming back for the next year. And then they said, actually, no, we're not. And you know what NC State did? Hey, the game is the game. More power to you. Y'all boys go and find your best lives. Go do your best elsewhere. We'll go find somebody to replace you or do our best to do so and move on. It is not, and here's the thing. Anybody who knows me knows I got mad love for the Wisconsin Badgers. Mad love for the Wisconsin Badgers. But at the end of the day, if a player don't want to be there, it's like a relationship. I take volunteers. I don't take hostages, baby. If you don't want to go, as the great Fantasia Barrino once said, if you don't want me, then don't talk to me. Go ahead and free yourself. You hold that young man there, and he doesn't want to be there. What is the outcome you're expecting from that? Yeah. You expect a guy that's going to give his all? You expect a guy that's not going to make business decisions with those Big Ten running backs coming down the hill? Is that what you expect? Like, no. If he wants to go, hey, I don't care what agreement you sign, more power to you, brother. Go on about your way. Go do your thing. And if you are to make the argument that, hey, he acts outside of the window, then sure, pursue whatever damages you need to pursue to say, hey, we were well outside his window to transfer. Because I believe Wisconsin's bowl game is longer than 5 days ago, right?
Well, but he asked, actually, I think it was like December 16th or 17th. So when he asked to leave, it was well within the window. They never filed his paperwork.
So that's the thing. If he's within the window, he's within the window. If he's outside the window, you can make the argument, sure, that he did not give you enough time to replace him with an equal or close or greater cornerback or player or whatever. Sure, maybe. But it seems like he did everything right. So it's not his lawyer finding a loophole. His lawyer said, this is the protocol, period. This is how this goes. When a player wants to leave in the year of our Lord and Savior 2025, they have the right to do so. The universities have to honor that. And the University of Wisconsin thought they were slick, thought they found themselves a loophole, and they thought they'd get out of it. Now, last thing here, to Wisconsin's benefit maybe, to maybe play devil's advocate here or Badgers advocate, because the devil got enough advocates. He don't need no damn more. So to play the Badgers advocate here, maybe they do have proof of tampering. At which point, sure, go after Miami in the court. But even if they tampered their tail off to go get that young man, let the NCAA bring the hammer down.
Right.
Let the NCAA say, all right, boom, loss of scholarships, vacate wins, postseason ban, whatever it is. But it's not your place to say, I'm going to hold you and violate my end because you violated your end. No, go do your thing. And because you violated your end, we'll see you in court.
Well, yeah, and if they're going to go the tampering route, you better hope that your house is squeaky clean, right? Because if there's a reason why a lot of schools out there don't go after others for tampering. It's because maybe they've also done it. Maybe Wisconsin's squeaky clean. There were, some allegations a couple years ago about how they acquired Tanner Mordecai from SMU. I'm pretty sure when they started interviewing Luke Fickell for their head coaching job, he was under contract in Cincinnati. You better make sure you're squeaky clean. As far as, again, I don't know what Wisconsin thinks they have or what they have possibly evidence against Miami. I have no idea. For what it's worth, we'll play the clip here of me, my occasional co-host, Bruce Warner, and Darren Heitner, who's the lawyer for Xavier Lucas. And I asked him what he knows about what Wisconsin may or may not have in terms of alleged evidence of Miami tampering. To your knowledge, do they have something, or do you have any idea what they think they have?
To my knowledge, the answer is no. I have not spoken with Wisconsin in a few days as we're recording this podcast. I only had a small amount of communication with Wisconsin leading up to Xavier deciding to unenroll from the university and then subsequently enroll at the University of Miami. I had made numerous efforts to communicate with the school, was very frustrated in that process, but ultimately did connect with somebody who absolutely has authority to speak on behalf of the University of Wisconsin. I don't want to get too deep into those conversations because we agreed to keep it as settlement-related conversations and keep those communications privileged. But one thing that I did discover in those communications was that, at least as far as I understood, they didn't have real proof other than hearsay as to whether or not there was tampering. And in the limited amount of time that I've been part of Xavier's team and as his counsel, I have not personally seen or heard any examples of tampering by the university. In fact, it appears that the university was very, very careful to not go down that path. And we were also careful in terms of how we orchestrated this whole process within the scope of the NCAA's rules. I mean, as I'm sure you and your listeners saw, the NCAA released one of the most interesting statements it has ever issued, at least as long as I've been living, which is that it says there's nothing that we did that is impermissible, that you can actually move schools outside of the transfer portal, largely rendering the portal useless.
So there's a lot to unpack there. Now, one of the reactions that people had, Kenton, was, did Xavier Lucas did he completely destroy the transfer portal? And now, like, you'll have a player who will, play for Wisconsin week 5, and then week 6 he's suiting up for Miami. I don't think I don't think we've opened that Pandora's box, because there still are academic deadlines that need to be met for transferring. Like, you still can't transfer within a season. Now, maybe the portal no longer exists and we're going to see different off-season jumps, but you still cannot go from one school to another within a season. We're not at that point yet.
I think that people who say that are missing the purpose of the transfer portal. The purpose of the transfer portal is not the movement, the actual, like, hey, this is the vehicle via which players move. No, it is a system by which players can let others know, I am looking to move.
That's a great point. Yeah.
What are we doing here? Oh, if the transfer portal's going, everybody's going to be transferring every game, and you're going to sign a 1-game contract to play. Do you hear yourselves? Are you okay? If you believe that, I'm going to tell you to do something, and these steps are going to be very important. Step 1, after you finish listening to this podcast, press that power button wherever it is on your desktop, laptop, phone, whatever you're listening to this on. Step 2, walk towards your front door, the front door of the hotel, the front door, wherever dwelling you're at. Step 3, go outside. Go outside. Feel the sun on your skin. That's optional. Maybe where you're at, there's not a lot of sunlight right now. Here's step 4. Now, this is the most important part. Either find some grass near you or walk, jog, bike, take a cab, find some grass and go touch it. Go touch that damn grass. Hug the grass. Rub it on your face. Because it is clear. It's clear you ain't touched no grass in a while. Rub it on your shoulders. Rub it on your back. Rub it on your belly. Grab you some grass. Go touch grass. That's idiotic. Again, the portal is a way that if I, Ken Gibbs, were to say, hey, I'm leaving Southwest Missouri State University, everybody who wants to contact me, come on, let's have these talks. That's what it's for. Right. People have transferred before the portal existed, right or wrong, Donno?
Yeah. Yes, correct. 100%.
So if people transferred before the portal, why do you think, destroying the portal is now just going to destroy transferring in this meaningful way? No, it will destroy the foundation via which people can communicate with these players to say, hey, Donno, I'm interested in Kenton, or hey, Kenton, I'm interested. I heard you leaving Southwest Missouri State. Well, let's talk. That's what it's going to destroy. It's not going to destroy the actual foundation of, hey, these are still student athletes. These are still students as well as they are athletes. Yes, they are athletes, but they still got to take a class, even if it's basket weaving, even if it's rocket science, even if it's aerospace engineering, they still got to take some type of class in order to be here. So, this case is messy and it's mucky, but this case is not something that we haven't seen in a way besides the fact that it's the university that is very clearly trying to pull a fast one if things are like they appear, at least from the outside peering in through my glasses. But again, if this is a tampering case, I would love to see what the end result is. And the worst part is, even if the end result is that he was tampered with, Guess where he's still not going to be, Buki?
Yeah,
he's
right.
not going to be at Wisconsin. So why are you fighting it like this? Why would you fight it in a way that like, oh, we're just not going to release you? Go about your way, man. Go about your way. We'll see you in court.
My theory, I don't know what they think they have on tampering, but what I think that Wisconsin's big issue here is, because the Big Ten has this template of these 2-year revenue sharing agreements. And I really think the challenge why Wisconsin is making a big stink about this is to try and uphold the validity of those agreements, because the Big Ten has basically drawn up these contracts that are, if they can be enforced, are transfer portal proof, right? I mean, you have 2 opportunities every single year to enter the transfer portal. And yet, Wisconsin and the Big Ten seemingly want to make sure all their players are locked in for a minimum of 2 years. So I really think that there is a willingness on their part to want to validate those agreements and basically, from their point of view, say, hey, like, yeah, you can transfer if you want to, but you got to wait 2 years. Once you sign this agreement, you are locked in. I think that's what they really want to enforce, in my humble opinion.
But here's the problem with that, Donno. That's like saying SMU just wanted to pay their players NIL before they got the death penalty. Like, Sure, you were just ahead of time. The timing of everything matters. Sure, when a revenue sharing agreement has been formally reached, when revenue sharing has been officially set up, and you pay out that first payment to say, hey, Donno, I'm paying you because we want you to come play receiver here. We saw how you were balling down there in Miami. We need you. We're going to pay you. This is our agreement. This is the Big Ten lobby. The Big Ten lobby.
I was going to say, the Big Ten lobby.
They're trying to stop me. But if they say we're going to pay you, this is the deal, this is the agreement, then they have got to honor that when that time comes. The problem is you're too early. And that matters. You're outside of that pocket where those agreements have been formally reached, to where the money is in the coffers. I've received the money, or I have the money, and I've now said I'm allocating it to you in this way. Now, if I am wrong here, which is possible, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know Wisconsin's finances. If they already have the money in the coffers and have already started to pay this young man as part of that agreement, hey, that's a different thing. That's a different thing, because monies have been rendered. But I don't think they're able to legally start paying revenue sharing before revenue sharing gets approved. So so they're either not paying revenue sharing, or they're illegally paying revenue sharing. And that's my point. Either way you cut it or slice it, your timing is off. Your timing is off. And again, I say this as a guy, I never grew up having smoke for the Badgers. As I grew older, I have enjoyed them more. I've been, hey man, that's a good program up there. They do things. Besides that one kid that was always taking charges up there, you know who you are. It was a white guard from Wisconsin that was always taking charges. That's not the way to play the game, son. But other than that, I've never had any smoke whatsoever with Wisconsin. I wish them all the best. I hope that they turn into everything they want to be, and Barry Alvarez one day decides the forward pass is a viable option in Madison. But I look at this and I say to myself, it seems like they're trying to uphold something that's not here yet. And you cannot say, hey, guaranteed based off what we anticipate is coming, because it could work out that, hey, the revenue sharing is not what everybody thinks is going to be, or works out in a different way where there's different scales for different schools and all that stuff. You don't know. You just don't know. And so if you're early, you're still early. Was SMU doing NIL early? Yeah, they were about 3 decades early. And guess what happened? Hey, Pony Express, more like we're beating a dead horse. Yeah, That's it. Stangs
they were visionaries. They knew in like 30 years this is all going to be legal. Let's do it now.
But now we can't go back and undeath penalty them. We can't go back and reinstate all their seasons. Say, whoa. We knew it was coming eventually. That's not how it works. Even if it is a much closer eventually, which we're seeing right now, you can't base things off an eventually possibly. It either is or it isn't.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, we're going to predict the future, because we have way too early betting odds on who's going to win the ACC in football next year. You want to keep it locked. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Guys, FanDuel has been an awesome way to get through these playoffs. I say get through the playoffs as if the playoffs is some sort of a punishment. I love the playoffs, but FanDuel only makes the playoffs even better. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. I'm Alex Donno from Locked On Canes alongside Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. Kenton, when I look through the early betting odds to win the ACC next year, a lot of it seems like, pretty obvious who the favorite is. But I will say that sometimes we get surprised, right? I mean, who were the odds-on favorites a year ago at this time to win the ACC? You remember?
Was it the Noles, I believe?
It was. Yeah,
okay.
And
Yeah.
I don't think 2-10 was on anybody's bingo card this year. So I'm not expecting that to happen next year with the favorites to win the cup. I'm not expecting that to happen, but you will not be surprised to hear that the Clemson Tigers are, I think, rightfully favored to win the conference at plus 1,800. We can question, I think, second, third, fourth, and fifth, Kenton. So, Miami, who is, they've certainly, Xavier Lucas included, they've added a lot of defensive backs. They added the top transfer portal ranked player in Carson Beck to play quarterback. It's Miami at plus 4,000, SMU and Louisville at plus 6,000 tied for third, and Florida State at plus 8,500, rounding out that top five. So, maybe the Noles are in for the big bounce back. I see you've been making this face ever since I mentioned Miami at plus 4,000 odds.
Because it hasn't gotten better. I wish something would have came in and corrected my face. The only team that I believe is rightfully where they are is Louisville. All those other teams you said, and SMU, I can see them at number 3.
What about Clemson at plus?
Yeah, Clemson's good. Clemson's good.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows me knows, hey, I've had to eat my crow to the Clemson fans. Hey,
sure.
I was wrong. Dabo has proven still nationally relevant. More power to them boys. With that being said, Miami at number 2. Why? How? Here's my thing. The more I look at that roster, the more I ask one question. Is Carson Beck a ceiling raiser? Is he a ceiling raiser? Will he raise the ceiling of this team? That's my question. Because with the weapons that they have coming back in terms of skill position, he's going to have to be that. I don't think that there's any argument that, like, hey, this team does not get to the ACC Championship with Carson Beck being a quarterback that you win with. I think that's fair to say. I think he has to be a guy to a high degree that you win because of him. Because he's here, we will win this game, as opposed to like, if we get a quarterback that just don't kill us, we'll be fine. I don't think Miami has that type of team yet. I think they're building there. I think they're 1 or 2 years away from that type of team where it's like, hey, give us a Ken Dorsey and we're going to win us a natty. I don't think they're there right now. So Miami being the 2, a little surprising. And the Noles, come on, man. Come on. How many times we got to play? In the words of that blue fish from SpongeBob, how many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? Florida State, how did you watch what they did last year? Watch them clean house in the way that they did last year and say they're the 5th most likely team to win an ACC championship. Now, do I believe it's possible that they finish 5th? Sure. That's possible. 5th most likely to win it all? No. We have seen and talked about quarterbacks in their first year out of the transfer portal, and I think Castellanos is a really good one. I just don't see it working out that way for them. Louisville is a team that I think they're underrated again. I think those backs, oh boy. And here's the thing. I don't think Miller Moss is a quarterback that is a ceiling raiser either. However, I believe that they're put in a position to where their offense has never been one that was reliant on one guy. It's never been that. It's never been like, hey, we barely have a system. This guy is a system. And they're not losing a ton in the same way that Miami is. They're not losing their school's all-time leading this, all-time leading that, record holder in this, record. They're not losing that in the same way. So that's why I'm a little bit more confident in Miller Moss and company potentially winning it than I am Miami.
By the way, let me correct. These are odds to win the college football playoff, not odds. I mean,
okay. I was just about to say Clemson plus 1,800. Let me go ahead.
Yeah. I was looking at that myself. Those are odds to win the playoff. Now, still, you could take the order of ACC teams and interpret it the same way, but those are odds to win the playoff, courtesy of FanDuel, by the way. So Clemson, rightfully so, does get those odds. So we appreciate everyone for tuning in, making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. He's Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. We're going to talk next time about whatever happens in the national championship game tonight. We're right before the game, so I didn't want to get too deep into it because a lot of you are going to watch this and listen to this probably after a champion is crowned. So we'll break it down afterwards. We'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.